recently was in Keystone. And so there's like, even though Ironic itself might work fine with Postgres, it's more difficult to test it because of dependencies that were less reliable with that database backend. So there is a bit of like, intertwining dependencies here, where if half the projects drop the testing, then maybe the other half that try to keep it running get a worse, the situation gets worse for them. I don't know. I just wanted to point that out, that I think what motivated Ironic's recent discussion was not actually Ironic itself breaking. It was one of the test dependencies, which happened to be Keystone in this case.
Yeah, and in Tempest side and also in Nova, we do have one job, but that is only experimental. So we don't run even a periodic. So they hardly get run, and I don't think anyone notice if they're passing or failing. So I remember they used to be periodic on Tempest side, but somewhere we have dropped those.
For context, I can't recall the last time we got a Postgres specific bug in Nova, and I also don't recall the last time that job was run. We do know that there's some incompatibility right now. So Nova allows you to use regexes and part of our API, and unfortunately, the regex format depends on the database you use. We should fix that and normalize it at some point. We just have never had enough demand for customers. But that it's already a point of divergence that we know exists. It'd also be interesting to survey of the OpenStack installers, what percentage of the installers actually support installing with Postgres or MariaDB as a configurable choice. I know OO is now defunct, but I don't know if it ever officially supported using Postgres. It may have. But if we were to look at OpenStack Ansible, look at Colo Ansible, the Puppet modules, and do a survey that might imply it. Or I don't know if the actual OpenStack survey data has any input we can get on what people are actually using in production for a backend to understand what impact it would have to actually officially remove the support.
Thank you. I think we have that data on line 155. So, I mean, Slavik, is there a proposal here? I know this is a good discussion to have across project teams, but were you proposing that because we are in a broken state, we stop testing?
I mean, in Neutron team, we do want to stop testing PostgreSQL, right? But as I said, I wanted to ask all of you, first of all, make people aware that Neutron is planning to do so. I didn't know that, for example, Nova is not testing that, and some other projects already did it. So maybe there is no issue at all, and Neutron can do it with no problem. But I wanted to make sure that it's not violating any OpenStack-wide rule or something.
Clark?
Yeah, just so as a perspective from an operator of software, I don't currently really operate an OpenStack cloud, but I operate other stuff that has databases, and you have to deal with all that. Recently, Gitty, there was a database issue with case sensitivity for MySQL and MariaDB, and they basically told us, well, you're using an inferior database. Why would you do that? And my response to them was, well, we've documented it. Like, Gitty literally documents that MariaDB or MySQL is a suggested way to deploy Gitty. And then they were kind of like, oh yeah, okay, well, and then that came to a fix. And I guess my point is, I think we should be very careful about like how we communicate this, and to avoid saying, what you've done as an operator is wrong. Maybe it's been documented in the past. We should clean up that documentation and be very explicit about like, hey, Postgres might work for you, but the testing is currently, subpar to our standards, and we would suggest use a different database. Basically just be upfront about those expectations and avoid the implication that this is supported and then we don't actually test it anywhere.
Just on the documentation point of view as well, Nova is in an actual kind of awkward position right now. Historically, we have documented that there is no default correlation type and whether or not it's case sensitive or not depends on the SQL server you have defined. We recently got a bug report that when we did the conversion over to Alembic, we accidentally hard-coded some of the correlation types. We went from SQL Alchemy over to Alembic, and that potentially causes issues when people are upgrading. So one of the conversations we need to have is whether or not we are going to introduce a specific correlation type to use, or how we're going to address that from a community perspective, because you do get different behavior based on your database back and again. So if you are filtering by tags, if you have a correlation type that's case insensitive, you get one behavior. If you've got binary correlation type, you get the other behavior. But there isn't a standard, as far as I'm aware, across OpenStack how that's meant to be handled. And that's why we've avoided enforcing that it's UTF-8 and case insensitive or case sensitive in the past in our DB models. And the behavior they therefore can diverge between SQLite, or if you've got MariaDB installed on an English locale versus on a Spanish locale, you'll get different default correlation types as well. So this is a kind of a unseen pain point that exists across most of the projects. We often don't have a strong definition of this is exactly how it's intended to be deployed.
All right. Thank you. And in the interest of time, I'm gonna just wrap up this discussion and move on to the last part of this. We're already at the hour, but if you could stay on for 5 more minutes, and if you have to drop off anywhere else, the 5 more minutes will show you the next thing as an FYI topic from Kancham. Kancham, go ahead.
Yeah, so just awareness, like again, this migration is happening, migrating to the Ubuntu Noble 24.4. So I just sent a mail in morning, I think half an hour before, the plan and the deadline when we will merge or migrate the base job to the Noble. So I've created the Etherpad also, and coming week I'll be started testing few of the project, but I will request you guys to start testing your project on the Noble. And one more thing to note, because this is the slurp job and we are upgrading the Ubuntu version testing, so we still need at least one job running on the previous version supported in 2024.1, which is on Jammy. So you can have one integration job still testing on Jammy, and rest of everything should be defaulted tested to the Noble, Ubuntu Noble. So if you have any question, anything, I just started the testing like last week. So there are a few failure in doc job or somewhere I'm getting, but not major one. So if you face any of the issue on your project, please add those in the Etherpad, and also the status with the patch link, where you will be testing and seeing everything is working or not working. Yeah. So that's all I wanted to communicate here too.
Perfect. Thanks, Kancham. All right, that's a wrap on our community leaders discussion. So we will have the next topic, the eventlet removal topic, but we'll take a small break. So we'd start at 10. So it's a 9-minute break. So please feel free to stretch, get a coffee, step away from your monitors. We'll be back here in 9 minutes.